Welcome back to another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I am here with Robbie. Bobby, what's up, dude?
Dude, we are here to tell the listeners what we have coming up. We are here to bring you the best fantasy football personalities from around the NFL to break down each squad for you, the viewers. We want you to win your league, and these are the guests that are going to bring you the insight that no one else will.
So stay tuned. We have 8 of these coming out for you guys. And enjoy.
All right, next up, we have one of the nicest guys in the fantasy football community and one of our absolute favorites. He's a fantasy sports writer over at CBS Sports, also an analyst on the Fantasy Football Today podcast and the host of the FFT Dynasty podcast. He's also a smoke meats connoisseur and would never be caught doing such a thing as baking a burger. You can find him on Twitter at Heath Cummings Sr., and you can find both the FFT and FFT Dynasty podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. It's time to welcome the one and only Heath Cummings to the show. How are you doing, Heath?
That was a fantastic introduction. I have been a little bit curious since the whole baked burger debacle. Like I do kind of wonder. I'm not going to do it. I mean, I've had meatloaf, so I have a pretty good idea of what it tastes like. It's just like without the seasoning, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's funny. That's an all-time Azer take, I feel like. So I had to throw that in there for you.
We're fortunate enough to get one like once a week now, so we're good to go.
Okay. See, I'm a bacon baker, which a lot of people are turned off by.
I think it's like definitely not as good, but I understand it. My wife hates the smell after we've made bacon in the house. And so that's been a compromise a few times as we've done it in the oven. I think that the most recently we did it in the air fryer. We've just gotten, I don't know if you guys use the air fryer, but we've become air fryer people and we just cook everything in the air fryer now.
Yeah.
Same. Yep.
We do too.
It's so nice and convenient. So good.
All right, Heath. Well, I want to kind of jump in with some generic questions here on the Chiefs first. First, I want to hit a few of the departures for this year. We got OC, Bieniemy. That one always hurts. Orlando Brown's a big loss. And then Juju and Mecole. Some nice additions at receiver. You know, we got Rashee Rice, we got Richie James, and then the additions of Juwan Taylor and Donovan Smith as well. So what are just your general expectations for the Chiefs this year? Do you see them running it back?
Well, I assume they're going to host the AFC Championship game because they've done that every year that Mahomes has been the starter. They'll probably play Burrow or Allen or Lamar, one of those guys in Arrowhead. And if D Ford doesn't jump off sides, they'll probably go to the Super Bowl. I mean, D Ford's not there anymore. It's a really weird thing because I know a lot of people have become bandwagon Chiefs fans since Mahomes became the quarterback, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. I was a Chiefs fan when it was Bill Kinney and Todd Blackledge and Steve DeBerg, and there was lots of really bad years offensively, and so it's kind of a weird thing to just think your team's going to be in the AFC Championship game every year, but I would expect they will be.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against it at this point. One of my good buddies is a really big lifelong Chiefs fan as well, and he says the same thing. I went through enough pain. It's my time. Just let me have it. You mentioned Mahomes there, obviously generational talent, an elite fantasy quarterback. Where do you have him ranked for fantasy this year? And do you see a difference in 4-point touchdown versus 6-point with some of the rushing upside of other guys?
Yeah. He's the clear number one for me in 6. I think in 4, you can make a pretty good argument for Allen or Hurts having more upside. I think Mahomes is still safer than those guys. And most of the time with quarterback, I don't care about that. That's why I've got Anthony Richardson in the top 10 already. I don't think your floor really matters that much in a 1 quarterback league. But when you're talking Mahomes versus Allen versus Hurts, now you're talking a 2nd round pick. So that floor does kind of become a little bigger part of it. So I think it's pretty close to a 3-way tie in 4-point per pass touchdown league. It just depends. If you want to shoot for the upside, then it's probably Allen or Hurts.
Yeah, that's a great take. I think you're right on the money with that one. You mentioned that 2nd round price tag. I think it's like 15 on Fantasy Pros, 21 on Underdog. Are you buying at both of those ADPs, or how do you feel about that?
I'm buying at 21. I'm not quite there at 15. There's about 18 guys that I have ahead of those 3 quarterbacks. So 18, 19, 20, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I like it.
I agree with you there. Talking about the receiving options for the team, obviously Travis Kelce, like Mahomes, truly elite fantasy option. Do you think there's any reason to expect anything different this year? And are you okay using a 1st round pick on him?
I'm okay using a first round pick on him. I've got him at 7 right now. It'll probably go back to 8 once Cooper Kupp is back. If Jonathan Taylor and Josh Jacobs were both in camp and fully healthy, then it'd probably be 10. There's no reason when looking at what he has done. That's the hardest part about this. He's going to be 34 years old this year, and we should expect decline at any moment. Father Time is still undefeated and will always be, but he was also about the best version we've ever seen of him last year. So there's no evidence in his game. There's no reason to suggest, but that's not always the way it works. It's not like this is a linear line of progression to a certain point and then a linear line of it's probably just going to hit a cliff at some point, and it shouldn't be that big of a surprise if it happens this year.
No, it definitely makes sense. And like you said, one of these years it's going to happen. It's hard to really know which year. And like you said, in this game right now, it doesn't look like it could be this year. But again, Father Time's undefeated. So looking at the wide receiver group, though, there are definitely plenty of options that could be fantasy viable. First of all, like, is this group too ambiguous and crowded for a stable fantasy option to emerge? Or do you kind of embrace that uncertainty and like to take shots on a few of these guys?
I think you should always embrace uncertainty when it's cheap and attached to Patrick Mahomes. I was not a big fan of the summer of Kadarius Toney in round 7. I didn't really get that. And now that that's not happening anymore, I'm happy to jump on board. I like Sky Moore in the round 9, round 10 range. I think Toney's fine in the double-digit rounds still. I have drafted some Justin Ross late now. I think in best ball, when you don't have to decide when to start him, MVS is fine after round 15 or 16, just because he's probably going to have 3 or 4 spike weeks. But it's all about cost. Like if this Sky Moore playing all 3 downs nonsense turns into him going in round 6 or 7 as the Chiefs' #1 wide receiver, then I'm going to be out on him as well. But if they're cheap and attached to Mahomes, yeah, I think like people kind of look at what happened last year and say, okay, Tyreek Hill's gone. It's really just Travis Kelce is all that matters. But that's not the way that it was last year. Mecole Hardman had a month as a top 12 wide receiver. Juju had 9 weeks as a top 24 wide receiver. If somebody earns that #1 wide receiver role and stays healthy throughout the season, they're going to be maybe a league winner at their cost right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, so you kind of mentioned, and the thing with Sky Moore too, I was loving the price before. He's starting to get steamed up more and more, and I agree. Once he gets to that point, I'm going to be out as well. So of the group, is there anyone that you specifically like the most?
I mean, in a vacuum, it's definitely Sky Moore, and he was terrible as a rookie, but we should have expected that. I didn't draft Sky Moore to help my fantasy team last year. He was a guy who had played wide receiver for 3 years of his life, was a running back before he went to college, and had to learn Andy Reid's system. Like it didn't all work. That's why I'm not in on the rookie this year either. My second favorite right now would be Toney. And then the guy that I'm just cheering for is Justin Ross, because that would be awesome. I think people forget, like as an 18-year-old, he led Clemson in receiving yards on a team that had T. Higgins and Hunter Renfrow. Like if he gets back to who he was, then everybody's in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I've had some behind the scenes a little bit Richie James love. I know the upside's not there, but I just think he's a much better receiver than he gets credit for. We haven't seen him in a large sample size, but he was so efficient for the Giants last year. I'm a little intrigued just to see what he does. I'm not saying he's fantasy relevant necessarily,
right?
But he's interesting.
I think he could do most of the stuff. Like he can't block like Juju, and he's not as good on contested catches as Juju, but I think he could do most of the stuff Juju does. The reason I've kind of stayed away from him is I think for that to happen, all the young guys have to fail. And I don't want to bet on all the young guys. Like I don't think Richie James is going to matter unless Toney's hurt and Sky Moore still can't run a route correctly and Rice is a lost rookie in Andy Reid's system. And then Richie James might be Juju.
Yep. I agree with all that. I can see the fit in the role and those type of things, but it's just a stretch to say he can do it all and supplant those guys.
Right.
Flipping over to the backfield a little bit, about the same as the receiving core. It's just dicey everywhere. Nobody seems to have a consensus on what exactly it's going to look like. You know, Pacheco showed a lot of promise. He's a guy I'm intrigued with this year with where he's going in drafts. But at the end of the day, he's still a 7th round guy. And, you've got other guys on the team with a little more commitment, specifically CEH. Do we think Pacheco has a chance at having a stranglehold on this job?
I think he has a really good chance of having a stranglehold on 1st and 2nd down between, I won't even say the 20s. I'm going to say between the 10s. The problem is that the Chiefs don't line up in the I formation and run it from inside the 5-yard line. Like they send 3 guys in motion, and then all the offensive linemen play ring around the rosy, and then they snap it to Kelsey, and then he throws it to Mecole Hardman or something. Like they do nonsense inside the 5-yard line. And like that did result in Clyde Edwards-Helaire scoring a bunch of touchdowns for a stretch last year, but it wasn't the type of touchdowns that Pacheco is going to score. It did result in Jerick McKinnon scoring a bunch of touchdowns at the end of the year, but again, not the type of touchdowns Pacheco is going to score. So he's someone I've pretty much avoided. He's a low-end number 3 running back for me in full PPR. I don't really think he has a whole lot of upside.
Between the 20s running back that lacks 3rd down work, it's pretty scary in fantasy potentially.
Exactly.
Yep. You mentioned McKinnon there, came on hot last year, put together a lot of touchdowns. He can be had really cheap. Is he a guy you're drafting a little bit? Are you looking at CH thinking there's still a chance he can come back around?
I think Clyde is interesting if the Chiefs don't, and I don't have any inside information. If I'm going to say it because I still think it might happen. If the Chiefs don't add anybody else and Pacheco doesn't get healthy, because he's not right now. He's not able to practice, and it's been long enough to where I think that matters a little bit. And Clyde's pretty much dominated the first team reps. I think Jerick McKinnon, the Chiefs would like to cryogenically freeze until December.
Right.
And that's kind of what they did 2 years ago. They got in trouble a little bit last year after Clyde's injury, and they had to break the glass a little bit earlier with McKinnon last year. But I really think that if you draft McKinnon, he makes sense in a best ball league where you can't make roster moves. I think most of the people that have the ability to drop him are going to drop him before he has a big stretch. If he does, there's been a lot of talk about Deneric Prince kind of doing some of the stuff that McKinnon does. And like the rookie might take part of that as well. So, and then who knows, maybe there's somebody in that building who really wanted Jonathan Taylor 3 years ago and has been telling them for the last 3 years, I can't believe you idiots drafted Clyde instead. And he's finally going to get his way in the next couple of weeks.
Theoretically, I know we're just talking theoretical here, but how do you like Taylor in that landing spot?
And again, we got in trouble with saying, remember how good all Andy Reid's running backs were? And then he went 3 years without a great one. Right. And it's just mix and match. I think if Jonathan Taylor was on the Chiefs, he would be a top 2 or 3 running back.
I feel the same way. That offense would be wide open for him.
All those other guys would be like, hey, you're a backup, just like you were supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we hit most of the big names. Anybody else fantasy-wise that is on your radar or you see anything with?
No, not really. I mean, I think like in Dynasty, the deep sleepers are Prince and Ross, and they are deep sleepers for a reason. In Dynasty, you've got to be pretty low end to be a deep sleeper, and that means your odds of hitting are pretty long. But they've done some exciting things in camp and kind of made a name for themselves. And so I think keep an eye on those guys and see what happens.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely a good point. One thing we like to ask everyone, who are some of your flag plant guys, like some of your my guys for this year?
Okay, well, I don't know if I'm not letting any cat out of the bag with when this is being recorded, I don't think, but I will say Tank Dell was my rookie flag plant guy. I think I've got him in 70% of my rookie drafts this year, and it was a good start to the preseason for him, so I'm happy about that. I think at quarterback, I don't know that it's probably Tua. I think if Tua stays healthy, he's better than Trevor Lawrence this year. So how's that for a flag that's planted?
That's a good one. I like it.
At running back, it's probably Miles Sanders, although he did get the groin tweak, so we'll see how that works. Later, it's Montgomery. And then wide receiver is definitely Jahan Dotson.
I like it.
Heck, I'll throw in David Njoku as at tight end as well.
That's good. I specifically like I like the Montgomery call there specifically. We just talked last night actually that, he's not this just handcuff that he's kind of being drafted as to some degree. He's got some standalone value with the role that we saw Jamal Williams in last year. He's interesting.
It's one of the evil joys, and I was tweeting about this earlier today, but that I've started to take is like the guys that fantasy Twitter don't think are any good, and coaches really like them.
Right.
And we saw it with Jamal Williams last year. And it's the same team, obviously, but like we saw it with Montgomery, with Khalil Herbert. Like people are just clamoring for Khalil Herbert to play 80% of the snaps, and the team doesn't want him to do that because he's really good at running with the ball, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, I agree with you. I think Montgomery, I wouldn't be surprised if he outsnaps Gibbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. Anyway, Heath, we just wanted to say thank you again. We can't thank you enough for joining us, talk some Kansas City Chiefs, some fantasy football with us. Honestly, it's been a pleasure and an honor. Before we let you go, let the viewers know where they can find all your content. You have anything coming soon that you'd like to promote?
I mean, I think you hit on it. I appreciate it. Just go check out Fantasy Football Today Dynasty. That's my new project this year, and I'm really been happy with the way it's going. We have guests on all the time, and we're talking Dynasty on the Fantasy Football Today podcast network. So I appreciate it. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find it.
Yeah, it's perfect. I can vouch. I've been listening, and I really enjoy it. So, you guys definitely go check that out. And thanks again, Heath. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have one of our favorite people in the fantasy football world, Mr. D-Bro himself, Derek Brown. You can check him out on Twitter at D-Bro_FFB. That's at DBRO_FFB. He's an analyst for Fantasy Pros and was a finalist for the FSWA DFS Writer of the Year in 2020. Make sure you check him out when he does his AMAs on Fantasy Pros Twitter account too, and Spaces. D-Bro, what's going on, man?
What's going on, guys? It's been a minute. I know y'all are running through all these teams and stuff, so it's going to be a badass series. So props to y'all for doing this, man, and thanks for having me. I mean, y'all set me up, man. I mean, this feels like the Penny Hardaway layup, where I'm just going to like Shaq Daddy like slam this home, dude. I mean, this team
He's on fire.
we get to talk about today. Woo-hoo-hoo. I'm ready, man.
Dude, we appreciate you being on. You hopped on with us during our Dad Bod episode this year. We were doing a little bit different. And of course, the moment we ask, you say sure. So we always appreciate it. But like you said, we got the Chargers. We got the Chargers today. And I'm going to talk about the departures. No major losses there. So we're going to move on to the additions. Quentin Johnson and offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, which is if you've been paying attention, I harp on Kellen Moore because I really like him. I think he was super valuable to the Cowboys, and I think he's going to be super valuable here. So there's some big buzz coming out of camp on what he can bring to this offense. What are your expectations for the Chargers this season with Moore coming in to call the plays?
They are going to run fast. Like legit, this is going to be sprinting up and down the field. I mean, you look at Kellen Moore over his 3 years in Dallas, he's never finished outside the top 5 in neutral pace. They're going to throw the damn ball too. Like, I know Justin Herbert, and this is not like, obviously, like, you know, I'm going to blow people out of their shoes here, but like Justin Herbert's finished second in passing attempts and passing yards in each of the last 2 seasons. He's at the top of the mountain this year, people. Top of the mountain. This team is going to lead the league in passing attempts, passing yards, and I mean, I'm here for it, man. They have got a fantastic collection of skill players, and the other part or piece that I think that's going to happen with Kellen Moore is we're not going to see all these Joe Lombardi, like dink and dunk. Like, who the hell is the quarterback? Chad Pennington? Like, nah, man. Like, they're going to throw the damn ball down the field. So this is an offense everybody should be gravitating to, trying to get parts or pieces of throughout your draft, whether you're paying up or you're taking values. I love this offense.
I love that, dude. I love that because I'm with you. Like you said, he threw the ball 672 times in 2021, 699 last year. You think it could even go up from there, which would be insane volume. And the more volume we know, the better for fantasy football. Now, Herbert's completion percentage jumped up to a career high at 68.2%. Do you see that continuing? Do you think that was kind of a product of, you know, some of these weapons being hurt and then the short passes coming in? His average depth of target obviously dropped from mid 7s to high 6s. So where do you see Herbert's kind of underlying metrics going? Do you think they're, like you said, they're going to push the ball a little bit more downfield, but do you think this completion percentage is going to continue to stay high and give him that, you know, top 3 upside?
Yeah, I mean, I think Herbert's all of his metrics are gonna stay extremely high. I mean, we could talk about, okay, well, the ADOT goes up and maybe his completion percentage drops, but I mean, the other part about this is the guy is absolute money. Like we're talking about first in money throws last year, first in pressure throws. Like his accuracy ratings across the board are tip top. So any kind of drops, like, yeah, with broken ribs, like we also got to talk about that too. He wasn't 100%. And you can't tell me that something like that doesn't affect, one, your throwing motion, two, your ability to put everything you have behind the ball and get that necessary torque for those deep balls, but three, hanging in the pocket and buying extra time and then chucking it deep. Like, if you got banged up ribs, you're not going to do that, man. You're going to say, okay, I need to get the damn ball out of my hands, especially when I don't have any freaking receivers that are healthy. So, I mean, even if his completion percentage drops a point or two, we're getting those high cholesterol targets, man. We're getting those downfield looks. It's going to be beautiful.
Those killer targets, baby.
Fatten them up. So his ADP right now, he's going at QB7, which is right around 42 overall, which to me and Mario have both talked about this. We think he's maybe the most undervalued quarterback going off the board right now. So where are you this year?
Because everybody's overvalued, right? Or not overvalued, but there's QBs are highly valued.
QBs are pushed up the board. You're not wrong about that at all.
Yeah. So where are you comfortable taking him in one QB formats?
See, right now in one QB ranks, and I'm not telling people to take him here because you don't have to, but I want people to be above consensus, and I really want to tell the people at home, like, where I'm at on Justin Herbert, like, I mean, he's in that elite tier of quarterbacks so that I just have mushed like from 34th overall to 39th overall. So, yeah, I'm fine with, like, I love the sweet spot that you could take Justin Herbert in the 5th round in a lot of drafts, maybe in your more casual home leagues. Maybe, he drops to the 6th. It could happen. But, I mean, I'm fine with taking him in the 4th round if you have to. Like, that's where the elite quarterbacks are going. Again, I'm not saying you have to. You can get him comfortably in the 5th round in almost every damn draft that you do. So go ahead and take him in the 5th round and enjoy. He's got QB1 overall upside this year.
Dude, I feel that completely. I just saw Kluge said, did something happen to Herbert? And he posted a picture of him going 70 in his draft. Now his ADP I think is right around 53, 54. So that was an odd situation. But if that value is there, and like you mentioned, he should have healthy weapons. And not only should he have healthy weapons, he now has a backup plan with QJ, right? So we have a ton. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, QJ, Gerald Everett. Weeks 10 through 18, Keenan was 4th in PPR points per game with 18.8. Obviously, he's another year older this year, coming in an injury-filled year from last year. Are you in on Keenan at ADP? I think it's around wide receiver 18, so late 3rd, early 4th.
People better pass over whatever the hell they're smoking and let Keenan fall to be in a low-end wide receiver 2. That shit is crazy. I've got him as wide receiver 11. And here's the thing. I know y'all's responses were like, whoa! Like,
no, I love it.
That's everybody. But here's the thing. What has Keenan Allen done? He's played
to deserve this?
No, what has he done to deserve all of this shame and this hate? And he's so injury prone, and he's washed, he's old. It's like, okay, first of all, let's get the injury prone bullshit out of the way. He's played at least 14 games in each of the last 5 seasons before this year. And let's also talk about how in the hell can people sit here and rank him as a wide receiver 2? He's only been, let's see here, wide receiver 11, wide receiver 11, wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8, 13, 3. Over the last few years, you go back to before that, 6. Like, how is he not ranked as a wide receiver 1? That's what I want to push back on people. It's like, okay, what changed? He got a little bit older. Okay. Does that matter for Keenan Allen, considering he's still producing extremely damn good? And when I say that, he can win on the outside, he can win on the inside. All of the metrics show that he can still do that. He has not dropped off at all. And yet people look at me side-eyed whenever I have him ranked as a wide receiver 1, and I'm like, why? What's the problem here? Kellen Moore is coming into town. They're going to lead the damn league in passing attempts. Keenan Allen could catch 110 balls this year, and you're like, but
He's 31.
He should be wide receiver 20-ish. Like, get out of here, man. I don't understand it. I don't.
That's what people are going to be responding. The year's going to be over. He's going to finish like wide receiver 5. They'll be like, but he's 31.
Yeah, but
next year
I always thought he was old, you know? But
yeah,
but I don't. Here's my thing. People cherry pick the hell out of that. It's like, we're going to shade Keenan Allen because he's a slot-only wide receiver and he's 31. Yet you're willing to draft Stephon Diggs, who's inching closer and closer to 30. You're willing to draft Devontae Adams, who is not that far apart from Keenan Allen. Right? Tyreek is getting older. But you don't have a problem with that. Oh, Cooper Kupp's over 30 now. But we don't have a problem doing any of that. But then when it comes to Keenan Allen, people are like, but I just don't know.
This is great. Yeah, this is a great point that not a lot of people talk enough about, for sure.
And I mean, he finished the year with 18.8, I mentioned already, which was the end of the year. That's what you want to see. A couple of things that we mentioned on our podcast last night, we actually talked Chargers a lot, was this is an offense that's going to be throwing it. Their defense wasn't amazing. Now they have some pieces on defense, but look at this division. I mean, if the Broncos bounce back to being good, we got Kansas City. Like I don't know what we feel about the Raiders. I don't feel too strong, but their defense ain't great. So like, there's just a lot of opportunity in this offense for them to be throwing a ton, obviously, and needing to score. But going back to these passing weapons, Mike Williams versus QJ, do you think do you have a preference here, especially at ADP? Do you think QJ could pass up Mike Will as a major focal point in this offense? How you feeling there?
QJ is going to be their wide receiver too. I mean, just
I love it. I love that take.
The versatility of his game is going to be shown to the NFL this year. And I was not that big of a QJ stan walking into the process. Like, I liked him, obviously. Like, my closest comp for him was Brandon Ayuk whenever I wrote him up for Fantasy Pros. And with Quentin Johnston, the thing that I want to tell people is that, look, he's going to play all over the formation. People don't really understand that. He's going to get a lot of the similar usage that where Kellen Moore rotated CeeDee Lamb inside, outside, used him on crossers, tried to get yak opportunities, used him against zone coverage, and as well used him as the deep weapon. All of that shit is lining up for Quentin Johnston. Yeah. He's good. He was top 20 in PFF deep receiving grade. Not only that, we know that you look at where he stood last year as far as missed tackles force, yak per reception. He could do all those different things. Top 12 in both of those. As well as, I just talked about Keenan Allen still having the ability to win from the outside. Quentin Johnston is going to play in the slot more than people think. And I'm not saying 60%, 50%, but 30%, 35% is absolutely possible. And when you look at his skill set, a lot of people are discounting the fact that Quentin Johnston led all FBS wide receivers in slot yak per reception and slot yards per route run last year. All of them. And he got 25% of his targets from the slot. So he's going to get slot targets, and you're going to put that man up against tiny nickel corners or linebackers. Dude, it's going to be beautiful. And I don't understand why he's going as low as he is. Like, you can.
He's the discounted one, the real.
He is. And the thing about Quentin Johnston is and I keep hammering these rookie wide receivers, but there's a lovely contingent of these guys. There's Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Quentin Johnston that are all sitting there with first-round draft capital. But people are like, man, I don't know about the target volume and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, do we not realize that every single one of these guys has contingent upside? You're drafting them as wide receiver 3s and 4s. And I'm going to drill this down specifically for QJ. Tell me this, guys, and help me. Talk to me like I'm 5 here, because I need this to make sense, and I don't really understand this, okay? Social media loves to talk about how injury-prone Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are, okay? Then how in the hell do they let Quentin Johnston fall to be a wide receiver 4? Make it make sense. Okay, they're so injury prone. Here's a first round wide receiver.
But I'm down on him too. Yeah.
But he sucks too. Oh wait, we love Kellen Moore, but we don't
love
Eckler. Anybody outside of this except for Austin Eckler. How does this make any sense?
Yeah.
Any sense?
This offense, you're hitting a lot of points here, dude. This offense is like value all around outside of Eckler. Eckler is going to cost you a pretty dime. And
This is all
what's
narratives,
crazy about
man.
that,
Narratives
his
and
tar-
bullshit, pushing them down in ADP. That's all it is.
dude,
This is the content we needed, D, bro. This is why we have you coming in to talk Chargers. This is what we needed.
You're trying to do the same thing I'm trying to do. We're just trying to help people win leagues.
Yep.
And part of that is sifting through the echo chamber bullshit out on social media. I can't say Twitter now because it's not Twitter. It's X or it's the Bird app. It's
X going to give it to you.
I mean, shit, I don't know anymore, man. So I'm just going to blanket it with social media. But like, it's all the same stuff. Oh, well, Mike Williams can't stay healthy. Neither can Keenan, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. It's like people can't cherry pick what actual narratives they want to buy into, but they're letting all these Chargers fall in drafts. It doesn't make any sense to me. So, look, I'm just out here like you guys. I'm just trying to preach the good word.
We're about to start. You know what? Let's start. Baby. Yeah, we're going door to door. Let's go.
Hey, it's all good. You know, get the white button down, the tie, and just start knocking on doors, man.
Yeah, D, bro, that is perfect. And we did kind of just hit on Austin Eckler a little bit. He's going, you know, at the RB2 levels. Where are you comfortable drafting him? And do you have him at RB2 this season, or do you have somebody sneaking up ahead of him?
I do not have him at RB2, but I do have him in my tier 1 of RBs. I have him at RB3 right now. In all of this conversation about the Chargers offense, I think that Austin Eckler is still going to be very, very good this year. But do I think that he's RB1 overall? That's where I have a little bit of problem, because they are going to throw. They're going to throw more. They're going to throw down the field. And assuming these weapons are healthy, like I think Austin Eckler, book him for a 15% target share. Does he get to 18? Does he get up there where he gets 100 receptions? I don't think that happens this year. And if they're going to throw the ball more, then more touchdowns are going to go to the passing game. So I've got Austin Eckler as a tier 1 guy. I've got the only running backs I have above him, and it's just, you know, people have steam come out of their ears whenever I say this, but the only 2 running backs that I have above him, I have Tony Pollard at RB1. I have Bijan Robinson at RB2. So I know everybody loves to hate my Pollard rank, but it's like, you could poke holes in all of these guys. And I'm
Pollard at 2.
I want Austin Eckler 2.0 this year, and that's going to be Tony Pollard. So people can say whatever they want to, but when he goes out and he does the damn thing, they're going to wish they drafted more Tony Pollard. But on Austin Eckler, like, yeah, man. I mean, look, tier 1, he's RB3. The only other running back in that tier 1 outside of Pollard, Bijan, and Eckler is CMC. So, yeah, I think he needs to be drafted.
You got CMC at 4?
Yeah, I've got CMC at 4. Again, people hate that. You know, they just want to pretend like Elijah Mitchell is not a thing, but whatever.
Are there any other Charger offensive players you think we should keep an eye on early on in this season?
I mean, really, it's just, unless you have like hope in best ball circles for, you know, Josh Palmer, which I don't. I mean, I'll sprinkle in some last pick Josh Palmer on Charger stacks, or, you know, for correlation. But I mean, really, I think that this kind of comes down to is Gerald Everett. I love Gerald Everett this year. I've got him ranked. I know it's as a top 12 guy. Let me see where I've got him at. I've got Gerald Everett at tight end 10, right above Evan Ingram, right behind Pat Freiermuth. And
spicy.
But I mean, think about it this way, guys. When we play DFS, when we target good offenses, if the offense is really, really damn good, who comes along for the ride? Who gets the extra touchdowns? Who gets the red zone look? I mean, so Gerald Everett, we've already seen him produce as a top 12 tight end. We saw that in Seattle for a stretch. We've seen what he can do. He is a yak machine. And now you're going to airdrop him into this offense that Kellen Moore has shown. And I'm going to say it, with a lesser talent in Dalton Schultz. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Dalton Schultz, but if you look at athletic talent and just raw upside,
I say that all the time, man.
Gerald Everett has it for days.
He's a jag.
Like, he has it over Dalton Schultz. Like, you know, so we've seen Dalton Schultz produce at top 10 levels. Why the hell can't Gerald Everett? And people want to go back, oh, well, it's target volume. Oh, okay. Well, target volume for the team that's probably going to lead the NFL in passing attempts. That's what you're worried about with target volume. And even if he is the 5th option in this passing attack, he needs 90 to 100 targets, 90, maybe even 80 if the touchdowns go his way, to be a top 12 tight end. Really? We don't think that Gerald Everett can get 80 to 90 targets in the offense that's going to throw the ball the most in the NFL that like is consolidated outside of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, QJ? Like, he's going to get more targets than Josh Palmer just by being on the field all the time. How does he not get there? If we're buying into these offenses, the tight end comes along for the ride. I think, and I've tried to point this out, like in best balls and stuff like that. If you're making the bet on the quarterbacks or the offense, the easiest bet to attach to the bet that you're making, and one of the easiest ways to sit here and just limit the things that you have to get right on a weekly basis or in drafts or every year. It's like correlate your bets. Yeah, the Chargers are going to be really damn good. Okay, well, then I'm going to rank these guys aggressively because here's the thing. How many years do we have to see this in a row where one offense goes out there and supports, let me see here, an RB1, 2 top 24 wide receivers, a tight end 1. It raises everything in that offense. Yeah, Gerald Everett's coming along for the ride. Punch the ticket.
Love that. I love
it.
That. You just hit it on
I feel like I'm gonna be all in on these Chargers all
I know,
season
dude,
now that I wasn't planning on.
Drafting
like,
every Charger.
I wasn't down on them, but I'm much more all in. Just it's like going to what are those like those seminars where they're like pump you up, like take back your life. I feel like I'm about to take back my
I always
life.
think of Yes Man when somebody brings something like that up. Like that movie is ridiculous.
And that D-Bro, one last question we ask everybody that we're doing this with. Who are your plant the flag players, regardless of team? Who are the guys you're going out and getting in every draft that you can?
Well, it seems like everybody's kind of hopping on the party wagon, but Daniel Jones and Darren Waller have to be at the top of the list. I think Darren Waller has top 3 tight end upside this year. I think he's going to contend for tight end 1 with Travis Kelce. I think Daniel Jones has top 5 upside. It sounds crazy to people, but he was just QB 10 and he barely threw the damn ball last year. So I don't know why it sounds that crazy, but here we are. That is honestly, if I'm going to sit here and put my stamp on a stack that I think is going to be a league winning stack. Like last year, I was everywhere talking about like draft Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. This year, it's Daniel Jones and Darren Waller. The other 2 guys that I want to bring up here again, Tony Pollard. I think he's going to absolutely just eviscerate. I think he's going to absolutely crush. I love him this year. Austin Eckler 2.0, sign me up. And the last guy I'll bring up here is my dark horse wide receiver 1 overall. He is going to continue the Cooper Kupp career arc. We're going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown just blow up this year. He's going to get 160 plus targets. He's going to get double-digit touchdowns. I'm here for it all. He's going to get some deep targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get 160 plus targets this year, and he is going to be amazing.
I don't want to just single out the one guy here, but I would just like that is the one thing that like you look at Detroit Lions and their target distribution last season, and you see guys like Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds pulling like 130, 140. Like I'm not going to count on those being that high this season. And like there was a text Goff sent to, I don't know who it was, about Amon-Ra is special or something. I think he sent it to Ben Johnson. He said,
Ben Johnson.
And dude, it's exciting.
I mean, my thing with Amon-Ra, and I don't want to sit here and keep heaping on top of it, but the thing that people really don't understand with him is that outside of everything, and I know people are going to watch this, they're going to nitpick about like, there's no way in hell he's basically Keenan Allen. There's no way he gets double-digit touchdowns. Well, after week 10 last year, he led all wide receivers, everybody
in touchdowns,
top of the hill, red zone targets.
That's awesome.
So he's going to get red zone work this year. That's going to happen. We've already seen that for half a season. And this offense over the final when it was 8 games, over the final 8 games of last season, they were top 12 in passing rate and neutral pace. So you marry that with a player like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is 3rd in target per route run rate, and you say, well, we're going to run more plays. You're going to run more routes. You're top 5 in getting targets when you run routes. So guess what? Your target volume is going up.
Mm-hmm. I love that, dude. And I mean, to add, and it's sad. They just lost who I would think was going to kind of, open the door for Laporta. I think Zostra, if I'm saying that right, I think he just had a serious knee injury, I think yesterday.
Oh, geez. I hate to hear that.
And
that sucks.
he was a touchdown machine. And I know it was very small sample size, but I think there was a game he had 3. So, I mean, that does open up the door for even more touchdowns. But if you couldn't tell, Robbie had to go mute because his dog's getting wild. But we wanted to thank you so much again for hopping on with us. I know this is such a crazy time of the year. If you want to, before we let you go, let people know where they could find you and anything that you have coming up.
All right, man. Thank y'all for having me. It's a blast to talk ball with y'all every time that y'all so graciously invite me onto the show.
Dude,
so look, I really appreciate it. Man, it's all the things and stuff. Everything's at fantasypros.com. I just updated my perfect draft. All of my articles actually just got a spit shine the other day. So my perfect draft article is up there. It's my top. Not my top, but like basically I walk you through every round of the draft. There's like 60 some odd players.
Oh, that's cool.
So it is basically my love letter to fantasy gamers this year. It's the Bible for you to carry to your drafts, as well as, the podcast is all places everywhere. And yeah, man, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out the Black Book with my dude, Joe Pisapia and Andrew Erickson. So look, if you're, you've been playing fantasy for a few years and you're not into the cheat sheets, you're not into, all the things and stuff out there, you can still get the Kindle version. You can still get the paperback book, get it sent to your house. It's on Amazon and stuff. But yeah, that's all the things I could shamelessly plug for this time, man.
Dude, we do appreciate you so much, man. And I'm looking forward to having you on again.
Appreciate it, guys.
Next up, we have an awesome guest that you guys are going to love. He's an NFL draft and fantasy football analyst with Roto Baller. He's also an FSWA member, which I think is awesome. I always tell anyone that's in FSW, I think it's an awesome achievement. On top of that, he's a fellow Ohio guy like us. We got to love him. You can find him on Twitter at LuckIsMadeFF, where he's super active and always has a ton of great info and advice on there for you guys. It's time to welcome in one of our favorite guys on Twitter, Kyle Lindemann, to the show. How are you doing, Kyle?
Hey, brothers. I'm doing good. We're crunch time.
Crunch time. We're getting close. We got all
almost there.
Talking. It's mock draft season. It feels like it's finally here. Yeah. We're getting all the dominoes falling with these RBs going to different places. Right. But we are here to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders, and I'm excited to have you on here, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm working on get a little green screen down here. I'm going to get a little microphone.
Nice, there you go. I can't wait to see the new setup. I need to get a green screen. I was telling Norton knows how to do that stuff. So I was just telling him I'm going to have to figure that one out. But let's get into these Raiders. We got some departures, obviously. Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Matt Collins, Foster Moreau. Some key additions. Jimmy Garoppolo's coming in to stabilize the QB position. Jacoby Myers, Austin Hooper. First thing I always ask, what's kind of your gut expectation for the Las Vegas Raiders for the 2023 season?
I would say it's not good, unfortunately. Sorry, Raiders fans. Just felt like last year they kind of acted like a team that was like on the cusp. They traded their first and second round pick for Devontae Adams. It was like they extended Carr, then they moved on from Carr. They were giving us all these mixed signals with Josh Jacobs, or they have Josh Jacobs out there in the first drive of the Hall of Fame game, and we're all like,
yeah, man.
Exactly. And it was like, and then he
really
ended
killed
up
his ADP.
And then he was like the running back 2 on the season. I'm like, how does it even make any sense?
Yeah.
I actually, I'm not, I want to say Carr is like elite, but I definitely think Derek Carr is better than he probably gets credit for. It's definitely a downgrade. I mean, Jimmy's contract is like somewhat affordable, but I don't know. They're kind of in a weird spot because it's like they got Devontae Adams, but at the same time they moved on from Darren Waller, and all they got was a third, which I guess wasn't bad, but it's like you gave up all this draft capital. You're kind of you feel like you got to win now, and then you trade Waller away, and it's like, so I mean, didn't go so well in Denver for McDaniels, and it almost kind of feels like it's going that way here. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping they're not like terrible because I want to see like the top quarterbacks in the draft go to the NFC. Do we have way too many good quarterbacks in the AFC? Like, we get Caleb Williams on the Raiders next year. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
So I am a little optimistic that Jimmy G is healthy, but I'm curious to see Jimmy G without Shanahan. I don't know that he's going to be good without him.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And you kind of hit on it a little bit with the quarterback situation. Obviously, they got rid of Carr, brought in Jimmy G. Um, you know, you mentioned too about the foot and being healthy. You think he's fully fine, or you think there's something to it?
Should be okay. I mean, I'm not a doctor. Devontae Adams is still elite. He was still awesome for fantasy. I mean, he was balling out with like Jared Stidham last year. So like Devontae Adams should be fine because his peripherals were so good. He hasn't shown like any signs of slowing down. So like his footwork is just so crisp and the way he runs routes and his hands. I mean, he's unbelievable. And it's just like hate to see like a guy like that who's like a borderline generational talent just like wasting away.
You're wasting away with the Jimmy G. Speaking of with Jimmy G, do you think there's any standalone value for fantasy? Maybe I don't think QB, one QB leagues, there's really too much value with him, but maybe in like super flexes, stuff like that.
I mean, you're going to roster him in super flex. I actually have him as my quarterback 3 in Scott Fishbowl. I'm not happy about it. I ended up getting sniped on Sam Howell, like one pick. The guy was at the 103, the guy at the 104. This guy in the UK, I mean, he literally sniped me like 4 times. It was just, and he sniped me on Howell, and then I ended up with Jimmy G as my quarterback because it was like, so. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to roster him in a super flex league, but I kind of look at it just like going to the dentist. It's like not going to be pretty, but like you have to do it. I mean,
good for your health.
You have to have him because in super flex, you're still better off starting Jimmy G than you are like a position player in the super flex spot. But like he's not going to give you any rushing upside. I am worried about like he's never thrown like a ton of touchdown passes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm not super optimistic. I do think Jimmy G's an okay quarterback, like in real life, but like he's without Shanahan, and it's just tough.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that's something a lot of people have been talking about, the kind of Jimmy G really made his career off of Shanahan, and what's it going to look like without him? And, let's keep going up with the receivers, his receiving options. You touched on Devontae Adams. He's been a top 12 receiver for 7 straight years now. He's coming off another really nice season last year. I think he was wide receiver 5 finish, maybe 3 in points per game, something like that. But that being said, his ADP has dipped to wide receiver 10 just because the quarterback issues that we're seeing, and obviously another year older. Are you buying him at that ADP? Do you think he can put up elite numbers again?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've kind of got Jefferson and Chase and Tyreek and Kupp kind of in a tier. I think Jefferson and Chase obviously a tier above, and then Kupp and Waddle Hill are right behind him. Then I think it's a little bit more ambiguous from like the wide receiver 5 to like the wide receiver 11 range. So he's kind of right in there. I mean, I am like slightly worried we're slightly overdrafting Chris Olave. So like I think I would rather take Devontae over Olave this year. And I do like Olave, especially as a Buckeye, but like I just feel like, man, it's like I feel like we're like literally drafting him at his ceiling already. And we don't have the production behind it. Like we do, but we don't have it for like 17 games. But if you say that on Twitter, I won't say that on Twitter because people will literally come out of the woodwork. They get like so triggered. If
you'll get some flack.
If you come after a Twitter darling, and he's one of them.
For sure. Yeah, that's the thing. And I love Olave too. I have him above consensus, but I do have Adams still above Olave. So I'm with you there. Now, I know you kind of hit on this a little bit before, but does the QB switch worry you at all for Devontae's production?
I mean, a little bit in terms of like ADOT, because Carr was kind of like more willing to kind of like force him the ball in certain situations. Like, okay, whatever, double coverage, just third down, I got to make a play. Like Carr would just throw it up. Jimmy's not really that guy. He doesn't like he kind of likes to just throw short. So it's a little different in terms of schematics. Like maybe, Devontae's ADOT goes down a little bit this year, but not something I would be overly worried about. Like if the Raiders are trailing, like obviously the game scripts are going to be there. And like we saw last year, even though the Raiders were out of it, when they basically shut Carr down for those last 2 games, like they didn't bench Devontae. And I think Devontae's that dude that he's not going to not play. Like, that's just who he is. Doesn't matter if they're 1-15. Like he's suiting up, he's going out there because like that dude just has so much pride.
And
he's just all skill. Like you just watch him. I mean, he's a great athlete, but he's just so skilled at like everything he does.
Yeah, I know he's like an elite talent. There's no argument there. But do you think Jimmy G will kind of go to him how Derek Carr did? He had 180 targets. That's my concern with him is that, right? Like he was a wide receiver 5 last year because he had 180 targets. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen again with Jimmy G because I don't think we've seen Jimmy really hyper focus on one receiver like that.
Yeah, I mean, I really think the sneaky guy that I want at a value is Michael Mayer. And I mean, he's basically going for free at the end of drafts. And, we kind of have that mentality, like in the fantasy community, like, oh, don't draft a rookie tight end. Rookie tight ends like never do anything for fantasy. And that's mostly true. But I do think this year's tight end class is just very special. There's just like 5 or 6 guys that I just think were just so good. And I actually think Mayer was the best tight end prospect in the draft. We had some very hardcore, like Michael Mayer fatigue by the end. And it was like, okay, he had a good combine, but he ran like what? I think he ran like a 4.7. It was between a 4.6 and a 4.7. I think it was a 4.7. And, people were just like, I think people were just like kind of like lost, like he lost his luster, but like he's a really, really good player. He does everything well. And my kind of comp for him was Jason Witten. And I get that maybe that's not an overly flashy guy in like today's NFL, but like that guy's just good. He's going to be on the field. He's going to make plays.
Definitely makes sense. And I think I love the win comp. The Zoomers out there, they don't know about the Jason Witten days and that we all went through here. And he was great, especially in full PPR. But yeah, and looking at the rest of the pass catching group, I
do like Myers.
I was gonna ask you about Myers. He's kind of been an underrated PPR option the last few years in New England, but he's been kind of the lead guy there. But now, he's going to be second fiddle at best to Devontae. So do you like him at the? He's currently going like wide receiver 58 on Underdog. You like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super excited about like the week 17 bring back like with the Colts, but like he's someone that like if it's a wide receiver avalanche draft, maybe like wide receivers start going, and I've got to reach a little bit to like stop the bleeding. I think that he's definitely very underrated, but so yes, he's maybe number 2, number 3 on the pecking order, but like I always like to look at like the guys around them too. Like I feel like it's going to be a pretty consolidated target share. And like, we can honestly say the same thing for Tennessee. Like, yeah, I know people are like worried about Traylon Burks because of D-Hop, but like they literally have no one else. Like I don't even know who their wide receiver 3 is. Like Nick Westbrook, Akeen. And I almost kind of feel that way about the Raiders too. It's like they drafted that Tucker guy in like round 3, the receiver from Cincinnati. And I actually thought that Tyler Scott, the other wide receiver from Cincinnati who went to the Bears, was better than him. So that was kind of an interesting pick to me. So it's going to probably be a more highly consolidated target share. So I don't think
between Devontae and Myers and Mayer. I agree.
I don't think Myers is going to like be unbelievable, but I think he can finish better than where we're drafting him.
For sure. And also you got to factor in the upside of Josh Jacobs pass catching abilities. He's coming off another monster season. You brought him up earlier where it looked like he was, I don't know if he was in the doghouse earlier, but they played him in the Hall of Fame game. And then he surprised everybody, surprised me for sure. How do you see this contract situation kind of playing out with Jacobs? And are you into him where he's going in drafts? He's kind of going like 3rd round or so right now.
I'm good. And I actually at the expo, I was in like an expert mock draft, and I was in it with JJ Zacharyson, and he took Josh Jacobs at like 306. So the fact that he took him was kind of, because I love JJ. I think he's like one of the smartest people. If he's good with Jacobs, I feel like I'm good with Jacobs. The one guy that I thought would hold out would be Jonathan Taylor, because I feel like he has like a point to prove. And Jacobs is going to show up. I mean, he's still going to get like 10 million. Maybe they'll give him a little bonus like the Giants did with Saquon. I mean, I just think after what happened with Le'Veon, like it doesn't benefit these guys to sit out. So it's just it is what it is. I feel for the running backs. Like it's a violent sport. Like these guys take the most abuse. They get paid the least. They have the shortest careers, and like a lot of them are like the best athletes on the field. So it's like I feel for running backs. So, but
I think that's a consensus.
I think he's going to play. I mean, when you see a running back get as much usage as he has, probably going to see a little bit of a dip, but like he's young. I believe he's still like 25. So until we get up to that like age 27 range, I don't really worry about it as much.
Yeah, he's 25 and a half, probably be playing 26 this season. You're right. Like he's got a lot of wear and tear on the body for only being 25, but I'm with you. I think he still has a couple good seasons left in the tank. Now, I don't think he'll be RB2 this season. But he can be especially where he's going in drafts, like he can kill that ADP. And then we kind of hit on all this. You were talking earlier about you think this offense is going to be kind of hyper focused around like a few positional receivers because there's not a ton else on this offense. Is there anybody else that you're kind of interested in this offense besides the guys that we hit?
No, I mean, I guess on underdog, I want to have a small percentage of Zamir. Like I probably want to be even on Zamir White just in case something happens with Jacobs. Like we've had instances in the past where like running backs didn't report to camp, and then it was like they weren't in like football shape and they got hurt or they popped a hamstring. Then all of a sudden Zamir White's playing. His peripherals like weren't the best, and I wasn't like super excited about him as a prospect. Like they really didn't use him at all last year, I felt, which was kind of telling. He was on that really good Georgia team where he like split the backfield with James Cook. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a handcuff guy. I like if I had Josh Jacobs, I wouldn't pick Zamir White because I don't know if you know who Michael Leone is from like 4 for 4, but I believe no. Is he 4 for 4 or establish a run? Establish a run.
Yeah.
He always has the best piece of advice. He says, always draft as if you are right. And it sounds so simple, but like it's so true. And so I feel like if I'm got Josh Jacobs, like I take him that high, like I'm going into my draft with like the mentality that like Josh Jacobs is a starter. He's going to be good for me. And that's not to say you wouldn't handcuff in certain situations, but I just feel like early on, it's not really something that I would do. And I don't know if other people are going to roster him. So,
yeah, no, I think that's great. Piece of advice. Like I'm 100% in the same mindset, especially when it comes to best ball. Like when you're looking at best ball, you do not, and especially in tournaments in best ball, I won't draft Zamir White I will never draft a handcuff of any player on the same team. So yeah, I think you hit it there. One other thing we like to always ask everyone: who are some of your flag plant players? Some of your my guys for this year.
We say early, or we want to go like deep, or
whatever you
do a little bit of both.
A couple for me.
I'd say quarterback. I'd say Tua Tagovailoa. I feel like he gives you a lot of upside. He's not going to give you a ton of rushing, but obviously the health is a concern. But like the medical reports I've gotten suggest he's no more at risk to get a concussion now than he was before. He's basically trained with like a jiu-jitsu trainer this offseason, learning how to fall. How much of a difference will that make? I don't know. I still, for the most part, like subscribe to the belief that like for the majority of cases, like injuries are random. We can't predict them.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm going to fade a guy in my draft if I know he's already hurt or he's coming off an injury. Like maybe I'm a little worried about like Javonte Williams, even though I love him. So I just feel like wheels up with Tua. I really like Daniel Jones. Like he rushed for over 700 yards last year. He didn't throw a lot of touchdown passes, which I feel like that's an area he can improve. They brought in Darren Waller. They have like 12 slot receivers, which doesn't make any sense to me, but I do trust Brian Dable. Like Brian Dable's such a bright, like offensive wizard that he just schemes up so much stuff. They got Saquon back. So I really like those two. I would say if we're going to get later, like Brock Purdy, just because super flex, like he was going at like the quarterback 26 at one point, and like pretty clear this guy's a starter. So he's someone I love. Like, I don't know if he's got like top 10 upside, but like if you're drafting him at like quarterback 26 and he finishes like quarterback 12, quarterback 15, like in a super flex league, that's massive.
Yeah.
So him, Running back, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I just feel like Jahmyr Gibbs is basically like Reggie Bush if he like got in a time machine and like came to the future. And I just feel like offenses and offensive coordinators are so much better at like figuring out how to get a guy like that the ball compared to like 15 years ago. So him, I really do like James Cook, even though he's a little undersized. He's really being pushed up at the draft boards, but like all summer I was getting him like round 10.
Yeah.
Him, I do like Devon A-Chain as well, and that's like 3 undersized running backs I've
it's
in a
different.
row. But like Dalvin Cook didn't go to Miami, and he's just so fast. I mean, he is literally like one of the fastest guys on the field. So those guys, far as like receivers go, I am expecting a big season from DJ Moore with Justin Fields. I feel like those two pair well together. Man, I really like Drake London, but I'm just worried about the volume. Same thing with Christian Watson. Christian Watson has a lot of the peripherals of like a breakout quarterback or a breakout receiver.
For sure.
But I'm still a little bit worried about Jordan Love. So
yeah,
I'll say Sky Moore.
I like it.
Nice.
Tight end, let's say Greg Dulcich.
Yeah.
A lot of our guys.
That's the kind of the group consensus. Breakout tight end would be Greg Dulcich. I think he's going to have a monster year. And obviously, me and Norton are the 2 high guys on DJ Moore this year. He's got a little more love for Christian Watson than it sounds like me and you, because we have the same concern where I think the player can be an elite talent in the NFL. It's just, can Love sustain him this season?
Yeah, and I actually think Romeo Doubs is pretty good. And then it's like they drafted Jaden Reed, who was like the sixth wide receiver taken off the board. It's like there's a little bit of competition there. Green Bay's like a wild card. They have pretty wide range of outcomes. I think for me, it's just hard to like spend such early draft capital on Christian Watson. It was like,
I get it.
I could get Jordan Love like Romeo Doubs late and like without much opportunity cost.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. But yeah, no, Kyle, we just wanted to say again, we can't thank you enough for coming on to join us and talk some Raiders, some fantasy football with us.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure. Before we let you go, let the viewers know where they can find you and all your content, and also if you have anything coming soon that you want to promote.
Yeah, so Luck is Made FF. That's my Twitter, also my YouTube. So I got hired an editor. Obviously, I'll have a green screen behind me, so I won't have this funky little basement set up. But yeah, so that just working on YouTube. I'm just pumping out as much content as possible. Mostly just kind of strategy videos. Probably the next like 3 weeks. Maybe people who kind of are like late minute cramming for their fantasy draft and like maybe aren't as well versed. Maybe, but like, hey, maybe I'll give you like a quick like Cliff Notes video so you at least have some idea before you go in your draft.
Yeah, definitely.
I like it.
That's pretty much what I'm working on for sure. But I was at the Fantasy Football Expo last weekend in Canton. I mean, we had a blast.
For sure. But Kyle, dude, we appreciate you and thanks for hopping on with us, buddy.
Yep. Go Browns, right?
Go Browns.
Absolutely.
Now we have one of our favorite listeners of the pod and has been with us for years since we originally started our podcast back in the bye week days. Juan Saenz, owner of KBD Card Collectors, and also it's Saenz Breakfast?
Saenz Ohana Breakfast.
Saenz Ohana Breakfast. You can find him on Twitter at KBD Cards. Juan, thank you so much for hopping on with us and talking the Broncos.
Absolutely. I love it. Been excited for this one.
Dude, we're excited to have you. We want to really get like your opinion because you're so involved with like being a huge Broncos fan, man. We like to grab the fans that know the most, and like you've always talked about the Broncos on your Twitter with us. So let's go over some of the departures. We had a few defensive linemen, but not much really. We had some big additions though for this Denver team, which we already saw that last year. Let's compound that and do it again. We got Sean Payton, Mike McGlinchey, Ben Power, Samaje P. Ryan. We drafted Marvin Mims. Like, what are your expectations this season for the Broncos, and how do they stack up in this gauntlet that is the AFC West?
Cool. It's going to be a tough one, but honestly, I think the momentum of the Broncos this season compared to last season, it's a little bit different. Watching their OTAs in the training camp, it just seems different to me. Russ is a little more smoother out there. He's running better. I think he's getting more connection with the receivers as well, because Peyton, of course, came in and threw out all Russell Wilson's like private coaches, like his quarterback coach and all that. So I really feel last season that's where Russ couldn't really get involved with the team on it, but maybe not. That's just my opinion. But I see this year he's just coming around more, and the receivers are hot right now. The running backs got a good duo. It's unfortunate we got a couple injuries today. Really bad. Really sucks, but it kind of in a weird way it lets you know like who's gonna be those top 3 guys maybe in a sense, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I hope. I don't want to get too excited because last year I got excited and we all know what happened, but we're gonna keep it. I have a good feeling for the Broncos. I think it's gonna be a tough division. You're not gonna be able to just go in there and take a day off when you play either of those teams. So
yeah, Juan. So you've touched on it a little bit there with Sean Payton coming in and him taking over the reins. So he's coming out of retirement and taking over that disaster that was Nathaniel Hackett last season.
Whoa, Aaron Rodgers ain't gonna like that, dude.
Yeah, he's coming. So what do you think Sean Payton can do differently to kind of turn this team around?
Well, it's kind of like a mom and dad coming in there, right? And knocking everyone straight in line and making sure that they're following their jobs and doing what they're supposed to do. I'm not saying that Nathaniel Hackett wasn't trying to do that, but it just seemed, even watching the OTAs, like last year when Nathaniel Hackett was running it compared to now when Sean Payton run it, like, I don't know how much videos you guys have seen of the Broncos, but I've watched quite a bit. Like, I always try to get on. I'm watching them over because I can't find enough sources anywhere to find them.
Yeah.
But it's just different. Like, if you listen to the interviews and they talk to the fans, like, I don't know, it just feels different to everyone. The tempo and the speed. And I think Sean Payton's just going to bring that structure that we needed and make pretty much, if they don't do their jobs, he's already told them, like, they're not going to work out. So I think everyone's feeling that right now.
Yeah, more of like a business atmosphere as opposed to just kind of friends hanging out, playing some ball. Yeah. I like that. I love that a lot. And then you talked about Russell Wilson a little bit here. So not an ideal start to his Broncos career. Yeah. Do we think that was more of the offense as a whole with Nathaniel Hackett running things? And do you think he can kind of get back to his Seattle days?
I absolutely think he can get back to what he was doing. I honestly think he's got more years in him than a lot of people say, but last year, I want to say it was a lot of confusion, emotional for Russell Wilson. Like, it may seem like he's a pro adult, but leaving Seattle where he was king forever there, and the way things ended was unfortunate. And that first game kind of, I think when they booed him, I don't know. I just felt it, like, how would I like to get booed when you come back to a place you won a Super Bowl for, and regardless of how it ended, they didn't show him that respect, and maybe he expected it. Maybe it got to his head, and then the whole learning the new system with the new coach, I mean, I imagine that's a lot. I'm not a pro player, so I don't know what that stress is like, but I know what my food truck stresses me out on.
Dude,
I could only imagine, so I think it had a lot to do with that, like emotional. I think he let himself get emotionally down too, and he knew it, and he just had a bum year, I think, and I think we're going to see different this year. But again, I don't want to get my excitement too much, but I'm hoping for the best.
Dude, I think that's such a good point because there was a lot of noise last offseason, and especially around Russ, like Broncos country, let's ride. All this TikTok videos, all of it. There was just a lot of noise, and it's honestly been real quiet over there.
Yeah,
real quiet.
He was kind of enemy number one, if you remember, back
for the world.
Yeah.
Everyone hated, and that's why I say, like, it was unfortunate because just the way it ended, like, I'm sure he didn't want it that way or Seattle, but now it's kind of like they're rolling with it. And even this year when they didn't like retire his number from Seattle, they're letting it out. Like, I get it, but the guy did a lot for them, and I bet you like that kind of took effect on him too.
Yeah, but I could see that, man.
I don't know. That's just my thought on it. Like,
I think it's a great thought on
else, like it's not that he sucks or he lost his talent, because at the end of the season you started seeing it come back, and it wasn't the greatest play of him, but as a fan, I was watching it and I finally saw him. Okay, he's finally starting to get into that rhythm, but then he would like throw an interception, you know. But it's because I think it really just confused him last year. But he seems on it now. Like I said, the OTAs, if you guys watch them, it just looks a lot different.
Yeah, I think. Well, I want to talk about one of the guys that we've been seeing in the OTAs quite a bit, who looks to be bouncing back pretty well. Javonte Williams coming back this season after a nasty ACL injury. He says that he'll be ready for Week 1. Like, what are your expectations for him this year? What are the rumors coming out of camp? Like, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, like the last few months have been kind of up and down, right? Like. Yeah. You get reports saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna make it."
All
like
good, all
saying
good.
that, but no one's officially like, "Yeah, he's gonna be there." And then it came around, and I actually I think it was a couple weeks before OTA started. I seen some videos of him doing leg presses, you know, like, and there was probably like 6 plates on each side, and he was just like pumping them, and I'm just
that
like,
is so insane.
Whoa, like, and you know, it's just the fact of like. He probably, in my mind, I thought like you shouldn't be doing that much weight, man. But it just shows like he's comfortable with that, you know. And like it's watching him too. And when he came out, his running, his cutting ability, you can tell he was kind of light at first, but he's picking up as we get into more days. Like now, I think I watched yesterday's videos this morning. So and there's a couple clips of him looking pretty good. I'm hoping big things from him.
If you were confused by what Juan just said, in a previous episode we had him on, where we very clearly tell them, but he's in Hawaii, so he's always 6 hours. Which way would it go? Back. So when by the time you wake up, it's like the news from yesterday. It's confusing. It's all messing with my head right now as we speak about it, but it makes perfect sense. Thinking about this.
Sorry for the confusion, guys.
Yeah, I made it worse.
You made it way worse.
I made it way worse. Like you're in a whole new world or something, dude. I know. I confused myself. Samaje P. Ryan coming over from Cincy. He brings like a good stability in the run game and one of the better pass catching backs in the league. Do you think like he can be involved in this offense, especially early on?
I actually think he's like one of the keys to help Javonte ease back in. Like, I don't think they're going to just give Javonte the full run at it, you know, which is smart. And I think P. Ryan's a strong enough runner and talented that when he gets his chances, he's going to make a difference too. Yeah. I mean, I picked him up in places not as like a backup to my starter, but you know, there's possibly you could use both of those guys in the first few weeks, depending on how they do what they do it with. Like Sean Payton loves those running backs, so who knows? But I'm in on P. Ryan as well.
Love it, man.
Yeah, and for the listeners right now, we are recording on July 31st, the day that KJ Hamler and Tim Patrick both went down in camp, which sucks for the Broncos. But with that in mind, let's talk about some of these receiving options, Juan. Jerry Jeudy, I think the talent is completely undeniable. He's one of the better players at the position. He just kind of needs to stay on the field, right? So with this new Sean Payton offense, with your expectations for Russ this season, how good do you think that he can really be this season?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I don't want to put too much out there in case I jinx him, you know, but I would say like top 15 to 20 range for Russell Wilson. Like maybe if he's really good on fire, like 10, but I don't want to put him up too high. Like I said, but I think he's got every weapon possible. And like I said, it looks different to me. And everyone else is saying he's different. And I think he's making more of connections with the players too. If you notice, like we had mentioned about like his Twitter, like last year he was all over Twitter, and like this year it's quiet. You don't see much, but he's more focused on at practices and learning the stuff with the team, it seems like. And I really have high expectations. Like honestly, I'll put him, in my opinion, I want him to be top 5, but I know that's a crazy shot out there, guys, but he's possibly could do that. Like he's got those weapons, and it's just got to go right. That's all.
Yeah. And some of those weapons, Jerry Jeudy, what are your expectations for him this season? Can he take this step forward and become, that kind of elite wide receiver option for Russ.
Definitely. I think Jerry Jeudy's waiting for that moment, and he's going to take it this year for sure. I mean, he's got other players out there that can take attention away from him too. So, it'll maybe give him those good one-on-one matches occasionally, just depending on how they line up. And I just 100%. I think so. Judy's going to go. Sorry. I don't want to ramble because I can ramble all day with him.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. Judy love.
He is one of my guys this season because I think he's going to go off. I think you hit everything that I wanted to talk about as well. But one of those other weapons alongside Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, now he's going to kind of step into that wide receiver 2 for sure with the injuries that came down today. It was somewhat of a disappointment last year with the expectations going into last year. How do we view him now? Can he kind of cement himself as that wide receiver 2, or are you still skeptical?
Well, before the injuries, I was a little happier and more optimistic about what he was going to do. I actually thought he was going to be a good fit inside of that number 3. I don't know if they were really planning on playing him the slot before Patrick got injured, but now that Patrick's injured, he's got to bounce out to number 2, where obviously the last few years he's struggled in that outside area. But there's a determination with this team. You can kind of see that too with watching all these players. And I've watched a couple connections with him and Russell Wilson, and he actually was out towards the line making a high leap, and grabbing the top high ball. So I picked him up everywhere because his ADP is so good that I just have I believe it's going to work out for it. All those players could be, really high end for us. And if Russell Wilson works out, if the Sean Payton coaching comes through and it all comes together, all those players can be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up a great point, because there's 2 other guys that we want to really discuss here that could, especially with news today, could play a huge part in the team. So I'm going to kind of lump them together: Marvin Mims and Greg Dulcich. So Dulcich, a second-year tight end, Marvin Mims, a rookie. Are either of these guys, is there any news coming out about how relevant they could be with Dulcich? Is there a lot of hype coming into the season for him as the tight end, receiving tight end? They called it, I know Sean Payton called him the Joker. Like, is there more hype surrounding them guys in Denver Broncos community?
Dulcich for sure. Even I haven't heard much since the injuries today, but before these injuries, like, he was considered coming in and supposed to have a breakout season for his second year.
Let's go. Love it.
That is kind of the insight. And now with the injuries, it's just gonna put him more in that middle and Mims
limelight.
Moving Sutton out and Jeudy out. Sutton could take a little hit, but the middle is going to be up for grabs. And you got Dulcich and Mims, who are talented as heck. And I think Dulcich for sure is a second season breakout.
I love that. I love that.
Because I'm all in on Dulcich.
Mario has been in even before these injuries, and now these make me even more in than I was. And before we let you go, I'm coming over. And now, before we let you go on, it's a question I ask all of our guests that we're having on for this. Regardless of team, just fantasy football players, who are your kind of plant the flag players? Like, who are you trying to go out and get in every draft? Who are the ones that you think are going to break out this season?
Like a player specifically, or like
anybody in the NFL. You could just pick one.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Olave is one of my guys that I've been going after a lot. I think Derek Carr's got something to prove, and I think he's gonna go to the New Orleans and just light it up over there. I just see it. You read players, like I coach kids and stuff, and I'm a soccer coach. I also do flag football, but like you learn to read people, and same with like on TV, you can read people's body expressions and just the way they're moving and working. And
it's hungry,
man. And I think Olave and Carr are going to be a good duo this season. A tight end, I honestly think, too, leaving the Oakland Raiders is Waller. Waller's going over to the New York Giants, and his ADP is pretty fair, it's fair. And I just think he's going to eat. And, Daniel Jones, everyone looks down on him and whatever. Daniel Jones, kind of like known as the goofy quarterback, but he gets it done, I feel like. And I think those are like my 2 guys I've been trying to go after. I don't want to give out too much because I play with a lot of guys around here that are probably I'm going to share this and they're going to watch. So, but
yeah,
those would probably be like my two that are on my teams right now that I have. Running back, I like Chubb a lot. That's running back Chubb. I think it's just time for him to shine, hopefully, and just as long as he can stay healthy, I think he's going to eat for sure.
Yeah. I love those players, man. I like Chubb is somebody we've talked about a lot on this podcast and how consistent he's been. So, I mean, dude's ADP is so good right now. I think it's just a steal as long as he stays healthy, of course. Juan, if you don't mind, if you want to kind of plug where people can find you, what you got coming up or anything you want to plug, but we really appreciate you being on here. So take the time and plug away.
Well, man, I appreciate you guys inviting me, but I actually do have one thing I want to talk about. I have, so I grade cards as well. So I send in a bunch of PSA, but we have some cards coming back and we'll be doing mystery packs for like NFL, like PSA 9s or 10s. It'll be all like rookie cards and stuff like that. But we'll be having a big show on my Instagram. I'll announce it on Twitter as well. But KBD Cards on Twitter, you can find me, or KBD Card Collectors on Instagram. Just message me. I love to talk cards or football, whatever. I'm very friendly and open. So if you want to message me or you have any questions about cards or you're not sure if you're new to the hobby and you don't feel like you want to get robbed or cheated by someone, I'm totally honest and will help you out. Me and my son do this as like a hobby, but fun for us. So we love to help people out with that too. And also don't forget my food truck, Signs Ohana Breakfast. We do all from scratch and I make breakfast. So if you want to check us out on Instagram, it's SAENZ Ohana OHANA breakfast on Instagram. But guys, I really appreciate following you from the beginning. Yeah, look forward to seeing you guys blow up even more. Right?
It's a grind. We'll see where we go, but we're gonna be here though. We know that. So
we're here for you,
no matter what happens, we're gonna be here, and we appreciate you for following us and always. I said it when we met before, always giving us feedback and everything. But you're awesome. Sharing it. Glad we finally had this. You know.
Yeah, it's awesome. I had so much fun. Can't tell you. It was awesome.
Appreciate you, Juan.
Yes.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you for watching our episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
If you aren't already following us on Twitter, check us out at Dad Bod FS.
We'll be posting all of our best clips and videos to all of our social media: TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on there at Dad Bod Fantasy Squad.
Lastly, if you'd rather just listen, we make sure we post our audio of each episode on all the major streaming platforms. Stick with us all season long so together we can count our trophies and not our calories.